Already we want to hear from our panelists in studio this morning. Remember, you're watching the Leadership Forum. Today we're looking at the role of public intellectuals, political analysts, pundits, and as well as commentators as we're getting up towards general election. How key and pivotal are they in shaping your opinion or the opinion of certain individuals and candidates who are vying for various seats in the country, and of course weighing in on the political scenario as well. We'll also drill deeper right now and see what they have to weigh in as far as, you know, the stories we've done this morning are concerned, looking at the maize puzzle and of course looking also at the politics of the day as well. Allow me to introduce to you this morning Cynthia Mutere. She is a social development specialist trained in gender and governance, and of course we're going to talk about various issues of course with her this morning to give us also details on why she thinks the role of political analysts is very key when it comes to also making or weighing in on the politics of the day and how that can shape your opinion or other people's opinions as far as candidates are concerned as we're getting up towards general election. Also, we have with us Professor Peter Kagwanja, who is the Chief Executive of Africa Policy Institute, also a visiting scholar, Institute of Diplomacy and International Studies, University of Nairobi, also former government advisor to President Mwai Kibaki, 2008-2013. Also, we do have with us, he has been missing in action for the longest time ever. This is Martin Olo. Martin Olo has been missing. He'll tell us where he has been. One of the political analysts, seasoned political analyst in this country. He's an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, a teacher and a practitioner of law. He specializes in constitutional, administrative, criminal, and commercial law. He writes weekly political commentaries. He's an accomplished political analyst on TV, radio, and social media, and is currently a student of organization leadership. And also he has a total of 30 years of work in public, private, religious, and non-governmental organization in management and advisory capacity. Also, we have with us this morning Adam Zolo. Adam Zolo is a lecturer at the university. He's a senior lecturer in the Department of Political Science and Public Administration at the University of Nairobi, and also is a practicing advocate. His areas of academic interest and specialization include international relations, public policy, political economy, comparative politics, and global governance. And in his professional careers, spanning 19 years, he has received various awards to enhance his career. And also he has several publications in both academic journals and book chapters. We'll tell you more about this. And also he extensively conducted research and is widely consulted on many governance issues. We're eagerly waiting for also Barak Muluka, who will join us much later in the course of the program. But let's hear from our panelists this morning, and talking on the stories of the day. Maize has been a big one, and of course having the constellation of our panelists, seasoned political analysts, and I know Professor Kagwanja doesn't like being called a political analyst himself, right? But we want to also debunk to know who is a political analyst and who is not right now. Let's begin with you, Cynthia. Maize, what has been your opinion so far, the way it has been handled by the government?
Morning, Debarl. Thank you for having me. First, I also don't go by the title political analyst, because basically my work is with gender and with governance.
Yes.
And my training in social development. But of course, that is the work of people who come and analyze, and they give a different view from what's going on in the politics,
yes.
A different narrative. It helps you to see what is truth and to ask questions. With the maize story that's coming, that's developing, of course there's been the shortage, and the whole country has really been grappling over the price of unga.
Yes. And
now that it has quickly been resolved, or the situation, the government has taken it, you want to ask questions on how this was, or was it something that was actually made by government? How did the subsidies arrive?
Yes.
What impact? Who determines the subsidies? Is it the farmers? Is it the importers? Is it government? And basically, to just try and thrash out the issues, you're breaking down these issues so that people can consume it, putting things in categories so that people can see them better, and really break it down for the citizen to consume. Do we have a government in place that is really trying to see that the livelihoods of the people are met and that they're uplifted.
All right, Professor Kakwanja.
Well, you're right. I don't like being called political analyst, because everybody go by the tag political analyst, and you don't know what their specialties is. I might be a medical doctor. I come here, you call me political analyst. I might be a vegetable vendor who has expertise in how to market vegetables, and then you come here, you call me a political analyst. I think we need to debunk that title. There's no title called political analyst. You're simply an analyst specializing in the area. You can't know everything in the world. You can't be an expert on everything. You must be an expert in something, particularly where your training and forte is. So that's about the issue of a political analyst. But you can analyze politics in various capacities if you wish. But I think as a title, there's a problem. The food.
Yes.
The food issue, I think it's as you know, food has always been the main, tilt on the balance whenever there is a political contestation, whether you're talking about Sudan, in other years, you're talking about Morocco, you're talking about Tunisia. The food politics has been a major issue. And it's not a surprise that it is an issue here. First, the question is, did we have a food shortage? Yes, we did. We are coming from a 2-year straight drought, 2016 to 2017, and it is not yet over. We're still, battling with that. A number of meetings have been held by the United Nations and other bodies to sensitize the world about the impact of drought and to prevent it from translating into a major famine. And this is not a Kenyan affair alone. It's an issue affecting the countries in the Horn of Africa. Therefore, the fact that there is food shortage is not a question. The question is whether Kenya had reserves to deal with that. And the debates are skewed. One, if you listen to or read social media, you'll find one of the line being argued that a certain cartel outside, not within the government, but outside the government, bought all the maize to create artificial famine, and the government responded by importing maize to cover that. So Kenya, I think the Kenyan political class seemingly seems to be playing politics with the Kenyan food. All right. That is if you go by what is taking place in social media. All right. I'm currently doing research, possibly by Sunday. In my column, I'll come with a more pronounced results of what I think was the case.
When we say they're playing politics, because we need to drill deeper today and learn what politics are they playing. And I think we have seasoned political scientists here to tell us much about this politics that is being played. When they say that they're playing politics with the maize flour, what do they mean? Martin?
Well, I think Professor made the statement. Politics of food is a reality in politics at any one time. And if you look at France, the issue of bread brings out tractors and brings out demonstrations on the streets. And usually it's about what is the price and is there any proposal to increase it? And I think what we are saying is that maize is a staple food in Kenya. And what happens to maize, it affects everybody, whether you are eating githeri or you're eating ugali. It's about maize. And the price and the cost at which it's going to be available becomes a real political issue. So depending on where you're sitting, it is about, are Kenyans able to afford, are Kenyans able to access, and are Kenyans having food available for them? Of course, the issue of availability, the issue of affordability become key, and that's where issues of subsidies ought to come in. And I think there's nothing wrong in the government subsidize. What is clear is how that needs to be done and what needs to be said out in terms of governance and accountability, in terms of transparency and so on. So what we are hearing is there's a lot of politicization of it. There's no clarity around it. And what we need to do is to weed through it and see, is it true? And you know, I don't accept when you tell me the cartels have bought the maize, because you see, that's not good enough. If somebody bought the maize, he is either a business person, allowed to buy it, but where is he storing it? Is it legal? And if it's not legal, what action can be taken about, I mean, what action is being taken on them, so that at the end of the day, we cannot get away by making a statement that, you know, cartels have taken. Who are these? If we know that they are cartels, what are we doing about it? How are we dealing with it? And who is being prosecuted? Who is being found to have broken the law here? But at the end of the day, in an open society and in an open economy like this one, a lot of things do happen. And that's why the role of government then becomes very, very important, because then government has to provide the policy, provide the balancing act in terms of even just entering the market and stabilizing it, pushing in resources, ensuring that there is some sense of stability around it. So basically what we want to do is to see more of open discussions around this. And of course, we need to see Kenyans accessing food, and particularly maize, you know, because unga is unga. Right.
When we have such scenarios where people cannot exhaustively explain what is really happening, they trot the excuse of cartels. We've had this with the NYS, we can hear it right now. Yes, we want also to debunk, to know which are these cartels that normally talk about, or is that just a, you know, a word that is shrouded in mystery so that people cannot really explain what are the facts on the ground, Adams?
Well, basically, I think the first thing that one has to say is that any government worth its salt must provide for its people the basic needs. And I think what the government should be thinking day in, day out, amongst the things it should be thinking of is, are my people who pay taxes and who I'm leading food secure? And I agree that food insecurity can occur. But what did you do about it? How did you plan about it? Did you have to wait until the opposition talks about it and then you decide this is going to be an election issue and therefore provide a solution? The budget was just passed. Is it 1.5 months away? How come you didn't factor in?
Yes.
Why do you have to now come with a supplementary budget if you are really planning? And therefore, as Martin says, if there is a cartel, I think Kenya is one of the countries that has the most number of intelligence officers. I can say that with finality.
Yes.
And they are very up at work, including monitoring conversations, trailing people, and all that. Are they at work? Did they brief the government? And if they did, what did the government do? If they didn't, why are they in office? And all that. So I think that when you talk of playing politics, for me, that's what governance is all about. Politics, simply defined, is who gets what, when, and how, or the authoritative allocation of resources and values. Simple.
Fantastic. And of course, also you lay a good ground for us to really drill deeper and look at politics itself, wondering, is it truly an exact science, right? But before you even head there, we'll be looking at that much later in the course of a program. We also have the story of Anne Waiguru, and this has come to the fore of the fact, first of all, she's running for gubernatorial seat, and people are contending, does she really pass muster when it comes to integrity issues as well? This has been also the big debate right now. As we know, people are being also thrown through that particular exercise of finding if they really pass muster when it comes to Leadership and Integrity Act, Chapter 6 of the Constitution. First of all, does she have the rights to actually run for office? Of course, constitutionally, we know she does. But if there's doubts hanging over her head in terms of integrity, what then? Cynthia?
We have independent institutions in this country that are supposed to be actually carrying out their job as mandated by the Constitution. We have the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission that's supposed to have really prosecuted these cases by forwarding evidence that they had gathered to the DPP now to carry on and make. Of course, we know that some people from the ministry and people involved in the NYS scandal have been brought to court, and of course cases going on. But what the public knows is that there was a leader in this entire scam, and that was the CS in the Ministry of Devolution, who was Anne Waiguru. Now, the question is, why hasn't the EACC prosecuted or taken evidence leveled against her to the DPP to prosecute. Now we see Parliament doing something about it, saying that she should not hold public office because she's not eligible because of these cases and how they were handled. Now when we come in and now break down this information is to know what is truth, what is not truth, why she should be prosecuted, why she should not, why doesn't the buck stop with her? Or why should it stop with her? Should she hold public office? And these are questions that should have been answered before she even started running, so that when someone is really she's the one who stepped out of office, saying that she's going for lighter duties. But to know that a public officer has not carried out their mandate to the extent that the public is satisfied, that there was no corruption, monies that could have been used for services and to help the youth, then that person should not be given further responsibility. And so when Parliament now, in hindsight, comes and says that she should be prosecuted and then she should not hold public office, it's just a committee that has recommended this. But she's going on with her campaign. She's going on to seek this office. And you will find that probably she'll put up quite a heated campaign and become governor. And we have seen the public tuachie mwizi wetu, huyu ni mwizi mwenye anatuibia sisi, and she gives us, and we are beneficiaries, and so don't touch her. And so you find that public officers that have been engaged in corruption and cases now become publicized, then they run into their communities.
So isn't this very confusing right now? Because we see she's holding the ticket now from Jubilee. It means also from the party level, she's really gone through the hoops and she's passed with flying colors as far as integrity is concerned. Why should it be an issue right now for the Public Accounts Committee if the party also, they've seen Waiguru, she's seen the light of day in terms of integrity, let her go through. She has a ticket.
Sometimes I wonder whether Kenyans are serious about this thing called democracy. The way we talk, we are so loose in our talking that it worries me deeply. The principle governing this country and many other democratic countries that you are not guilty until proven guilty by a lawfully instituted or constituted law, a court of law. Anything beyond that is kangaroo court. Anything beyond that is lynching, public lynching. I mean, I don't know about this matter, about Waiguru, whether he was involved or was not. I would wait for that word to come from the court of law. So let's leave to the principles that govern our country, so that we are truthful and we avoid the so-called public courts, or you are trying people through public hearsay. And this is what they would call in the slave days in North America as the public lynching. You want to lynch somebody and feel good about it. You want to lynch somebody and and teach them a lesson. That kind of behavior is not worth of the name of democracy. The second point I would want to make is about our institutions. The fact that we are talking about Waiguru as corrupt so affirmatively, and the institutions are silent or unable to do something about it, and now we are taking the cheaper political route to ask Jubilee to deal with it, like Jubilee has become a court in itself, again speak to the poverty of our institutions. Now, I say this because, and I want to be a little bit controversial here, that I believe that the architecture of anti-corruption in Kenya is itself tuned in a manner that it is political. Because corruption is not an ethical issue, where you get a bishop, whatever, to preside over. Corruption is not an ethical issue. It's a criminal issue. Why don't we make killing and other crimes ethical issues? This country is so effectively dealing with robbers. It is effectively dealing with gangsters. It's effectively dealing with other crimes. And you can look at the statistics from Kaiseri's department and others. Why are we not able to deal with corruption? Why? Because we have elected to confuse an issue, to confuse corruption as an ethical issue. You are taking money, putting it in your pocket, which is not yours, which is simply theft. Why are we going around anti-corruption, ethical this? why can't we mainstream corruption into the legal judicial process in this country and deal with it expeditiously? We don't have to have 1 year, 2 years. It should be taking days,
yes,
if not hours.
Isn't it? Yeah, also, we can look across the borders. We have South Korea right now, and I think Anne Waiguru's case has been going on for the longest time ever. We have been slow on the uptake to come with a determination on this particular case. President Park, she's actually now out of office right now. Yeah. Within a very shortest time, they came up, they did the investigation, and she was shown the door. And I don't know, right now she might even be being thrown into jail as well. Why?
Let me also come there, because that's where I was headed.
Yes.
That if you look at South Africa, they have the investigating agency, which is within the judicial system, called Scorpion,
yes,
which investigates even the president of the country,
Scorpion,
and arraign him in court. And there is no interference from any source. What can IEBC do? It is not, EACC do. It is not within the judicial system. It is something, a kiosk opened somewhere, yes, at the corner, which you politicize. Who is the commissioner? Who is not the commissioner? Who is the director? Abolish that body.
Yes.
Build a major department in that, dealing with that kind of a crime.
Yes.
And therefore we don't. But politicians are happy, and they will be among the first to oppose this, because they know corruption will get out of the political purview for debate, and you will not use it to range.
Thank you.
And I think that's the point to observe.
Right. And before we take a short break, just look at the editorial cartoon. Just briefly, we take a short break right now. 100 days in office. This is what maybe Archbishop Eliud Wabukala has been doing, right? And we have that particular EACC you're saying is a kiosk, but there is depicted a very emaciated dog. Actually, it's a skeleton. And we can see the plate there is graft, sniff, sniff. If he's able to sniff, the dog, does it have the capacity to sniff the graft, right? Such, and this is what he's been doing right now. All that is left is maybe prayers.
You see, Debarl, I want to situate this argument in a slightly different way.
Very briefly, we take a short break, and we'll continue with you.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, continue.
Okay. Basically, I don't think that Kenyans have any reason to begin to wonder why Waiguru is a darling of Kirinyaga people, or why Babayao is a darling of Kiambu people, or why Joho is a darling of Mombasa people, or why Sonko is a darling of Nairobi, or indeed why Oparanya, who defies courts all the time, is a darling in Kakamega. What we need to agree is that we're in a democratic country. We are not in a theocratic country.
Yes.
So this business of rights and wrongs do not apply. There's no standard that you can use to argue that so-and-so should not run. It's ultimately the people's choice. And if the people decide that Babayao is their candidate or Anne Waiguru is their candidate, that is the price we pay. That's democracy.
Yes.
So we shouldn't be setting standards, not in Parliament, not even EACC, not anywhere else, about the kind of people that democracy should create or deliver as leaders. If you look across the divide, any of the party primaries will tell you that there were no saints running for offices. They were just normal Kenyans who engage in normal things such as running away with ballots, and whether you are in this side or that side, what mattered was for you to win. And once you won, it mattered not how you got there. So the means, the end, they justified the means in this particular case. So we have a political situation that creates, not just in Africa, in all over the world. Trump is a classic case of a fellow who should have not have run for office. He's running the office and he's creating all sorts of controversies today. So
we'll come to that briefly. Right, let's continue now with looking critically, with the remaining few minutes that we have, at the role of who is a political analyst, who is a commentator, who is a pundit, right? And I was interested that you mentioned political science as well. Maybe we should throw this question and ask ourselves, is politics an exact science?
Well, it depends on how you want to look at it, because you have what you call the natural sciences, and you have what you call the social sciences.
Yes.
Basically, the natural sciences definitely go into the lab, they test and all that.
Yes.
Social scientists never go to the lab, but they use methods of natural sciences to arrive at what they have predicted. For example, you can come up with a theory. And basically, a theory can do three things. It can describe, it can predict, it can affirm. And therefore, when we say political science is a science, we ask ourselves that do they use some of the scientific methods to arrive at the theories, predictions, or determinations that they finally come up with? Do they come up with a hypothesis and therefore test that hypothesis to see whether what they had hypothesized is true or false? I can give a very live example right now that is going on. Jubilee has said that we shall get 70% plus one. NASA said that we shall get 10 million votes. Those are hypotheses. And a political scientist will go and say, okay, this hypothesis is either true or false. And then you go about testing it. The real test will come on August 8th, which is basically when people go to vote. And if it turns out that it happened, then you'll say that they predicted correctly in a scientific way what was expected. But remember, this is politicians saying, not necessarily a political scientist saying. So yes, it is a science, but it is a social science, not a natural science. Not a natural science. Yeah.
So in that regard, when we have also the NCAC taking special umbrage with what NASA is saying with the 10 million votes, right? Do they really stand on a good state to really raise that particular? Because you're basing it on hypothesis.
No, they don't. You see, when that Caparo team and Kaiseri are saying that you are inciting. Inciting what? You see, we have a very clear number that the IEBC, of course that will change after the voter verification and audit.
Yes.
But as of now, IEBC has said that 19.6 million people are registered. It is the right of Jubilee, it is the right of NASA to say that out of this 19.6 million, my target is this. There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of politics. That's part of the democracy that my colleagues were talking about.
Yes.
That's the type of telling your supporters that you have to come out and vote. When we talk of the tyranny of numbers that has become the order of the day, that was the same thing that Ngunyi said, that Jubilee would be able to get 6.2, and voila, they got 6.2. He said that Raila would get 2.1. Right. Voila, he got 5.3. Yes. Nobody complained then.
Yeah, we've had the deputy president saying 70 plus 1 as well. What is diametrically different of 70 plus 1, which is, if you maybe do your arithmetic well, is more even than the 10 million votes that we're talking about, Peter?
The problem is actually now the opposite. That what are the opponents of this slogan saying? They're being unscientific. They're being irrational. Basically, when an argument is put out, it has to be tested. And the time that it has to be tested is now here. So we will wait and see who is saying it and living with it. I think that a lot of times we are guided with fear, and sometimes we want to mislead ourselves. And so when you say 10 million plus, or when you say 70, why should I assume that you intend to rig? Because you see, immediately why the argument gets lost is somebody fails to see how you want to go about to get your 70% or go about getting your 10%, and wants to immediately begin to imagine that you'll be doing some other things that will not be real. Because at the end of the day, it's as my good friend has said, and I'm glad I'm sharing a podium with him, because everybody keeps confusing sometimes. When I meet people, they call me Adams, and when so please, if you're watching, get this right. So what my colleague,
close up of Adam and
they should get a shot. So what Adams is saying is true, that you hypothesize, you put out a theory, and this is perhaps the argument that when we started by saying, who is a political analyst? What are these people saying? A lot of people I see these days shouting on TV and saying they are making analysis. There's no analysis where you haven't put out an argument and then you want put up a statement and you want to carry on an argument and you want to convince people as to why you think you're going that direction. So that, for example, when an opinion, a pollster comes and tells you, we conducted this survey, this is what people are saying, and this is where the direction is. Now, you don't turn around and begin to vilify the pollster. You go and do your own, come up with your own, and refute that. But you see, in this country, a lot of times we shoot the messenger.
Well, we will look into that. Peter Kogajo, maybe you want to weigh in on that NASA 10 million vote debate and 70+ one as well.
I think I agree with what Adam said, that political science is a science because it has a methodology, and there is a way of verifying whether what one is saying is true or not. And there are very many branches of political science. Some relying on quantitative analysis, others are relying on qualitative analysis. In this age, at this age and time, what we are confronting is not really political science and its veracity. It's a completely new phenomenon called post-truth politics.
Post-truth politics.
And post-truth politics is about conturning a lie into, or what you can call sanitizing a lie into some truth, and getting the most articulate person to articulate that lie so that in the eyes of the public it becomes truth. Now, for example, if you say that you have 10 million voters behind you, that's part of post-truth politics. If you say that you are winning 70% plus, that's part of the post-truth politics. Why? Because you need researchers to verify that. If you stood and said, according to the research done by this and that institution, which is commissioned and given a charter by the same government or another government as an institution that produces scientific knowledge, then we need to take you seriously. If the World Bank, for example, came and said, our prediction in Kenya, based on our research, is such, you take them seriously. What we are having, again, to misuse my word, kiosk, we are having so many kiosks or pollsters going by all manner of names in this country. And not only this country, in America we had them. The only person who has a long trend in predicting things and almost coming right is Ned Silver in the US. And he has published his methodology on the website. You can see, you may disagree with the methodology, but it is there. BBC and other media houses, particularly in more responsible democracies, have banned announcement of opinion polls carried out by individual houses. Why? Because in the US you'll find those pollsters for Republican will say this, and those for this other thing. Again, this goes by the name of science. It is the truth, and therefore it hoodwinks the public to believe that one is getting 70%, the other one is getting 10 million, even before you have gone to the field to campaign. You already have in your basket. Why do you want to go to the trenches to fight for the vote if you already know that you are in your basket? Why don't you go to a holiday in Mombasa and then wait for August 8th?
Okay. Because then you would want to take that truth or post-truth as Professor is talking about, and is already saying that the 10 million would be post-truth being a lie. And you need to realize that they are changing dynamics. To take these dynamics and now use approaches. The approaches are strategy, a strategy of analyzing now these figures. As he is trying to say, what are the approaches? What are the methods that you're using? What strategy do you want to now break down this? Is it 70% or is it 10 million? So that's where now the pundit comes in. When he hears that you have a campaign slogan of 10 million, then you want to now reverse that and say that's a lie. Why is it a lie when there has been strategy at arriving at that figure? And why is it now a slogan for NASA to say 10 million? Because there's strategy that has been put in place to arrive at that figure, that they're going around the country saying, we have a 10 million strong vote and we can win this election. And so even as you're doing the science and the methodologies and all, you have to know that things are changing and you need to be alive to them and to use a different strategy to now then target how to win that election. All right,
Adam?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I agree with some of the things Kagwanja said, but you see, those who engage in politics are not academicians, where Kagwanja wants them to go and say, this is the research group that is recognized and whatever. Those who are in politics just do politics, and therefore, whoever is advising them or strategizing for them says, hey, out of the 19.6 million for Jubilee, they're saying, we can get 70% plus one. So that's what you should go for. Those strategizing for us are saying, out there's 10 million votes for us. It doesn't mean that you go to Mombasa for holiday. It means a registered voter is not a voter on election day. He's only a voter when he comes and casts that ballot. So they are saying, out of those 10 million, we want you to come on that day and put your ballot, because otherwise it won't count.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, given that...
yes. On that very quickly.
Very briefly.
Very briefly. The point is that strategic focusing onto the future is legitimate politically. The problem is if you now turn that into a claim in a post-election dispute and say, I had 10 million, and I had 10 million, here I am with the 4 million. How did it happen? So you have to verify from day one that you had 10 million so that in a post-election contest, you can now claim legitimately that researchers and whatever showed that I had this. How do I get this? This is the question. So, and that's where Kaiseri and NCSC, Kaparo, are saying that this is not right. It is not right because one can use this to incite ethnic violence.
You cannot begin to claim.
If we go that route, we'll miss the point.
Yeah.
The issue is, Trump says, let's make America great again. Whatever he means. Now we are into a phase. We don't know what that is.
As long as it made him get to the votes.
So sloganeering is what it is. Just rallying your troops and moving on with it. I don't think you want to condemn it. I don't think you even want to criminalize it. In fact, if you start talking about incitement, you are worse than somebody who is talking about 10 million.
Exactly.
I mean, who wants to incite who? I mean, why do you, unless of course you have irrefutable evidence, well, put it on the table. But for now, people are looking for votes. If somebody said America was great, why is Trump saying that we want to make it great again? You would be engaging in an exercise that doesn't help you. He had a slogan, he wanted to make, and people believed in him. So again, whatever the situation, every one of these parties is having a way in which they want to mobilize their people. And of course, make their people believe that they're going to win.
Right.
And you give them the numbers.
Okay.